The base of this project is going to be NX, which is Narwhal Extensions. It's a set of tools for working with monorepos, amongst other things. And we can get started if we do npx create NX workspace, and then we set some presets. We are going to be working with an Angular application in this case, so we can just set a preset of Angular. We'll be prompted for a workspace name. You can think of this like an organization name. In this case, I'll just call it Shirt Shop. That's going to be both the organization name and the application name in this case. We get asked which kind of default style sheet format we want. I'm just going to choose CSS. I will also choose to use ESLint, and I'll say no to the question about using NX Cloud for now. After everything installs, we can cd into Shirt Shop, and we can open that up in VS Code. Some of the key parts to take a look at here in the workspace structure include this apps directory. This has got the Shirt Shop application. This is the Angular application that we used as a preset. We've got an end-to-end test suite here that uses Cypress. And then in addition to this apps directory, we've got this libs directory. This is actually where most of the code that powers our applications will live. One of the philosophies of NX is to keep the applications directory pretty lean and to keep the bulk of our code in the libs directory. Let's just verify that the Shirt Shop application is going to work. We can do npm start here in the terminal. That will call ngserve, which will in turn call nx run Shirt Shop serve. And if that compiles, we should get it over in the browser at localhost 4200. And here is the default application that comes with NX. Now, before we go and make changes to this, we should get Nest.js into our application. We'll need to install a plugin for it, and then we'll need to create an API in our apps directory. So to get started, let's do npm install. We'll save it as a dev dependency, and we'll reach for narwhal/nest. So that gives us the plugin. Once we've got it, we need to generate our API. To do that, we would do nx generate. And we want to work against the Narwhal Nest plugin. We want to generate an application, and let's call it API. So we could give this any name, but since it will act as our API, we can just call it such. And what this does is it will go get the packages we need, and it will put everything for the Nest application in this API directory underneath apps. So if we take a look into API and we look into source, what we'll see is we have got a Nest.js API here. So for example, this getData method is going to respond to GET requests, and it will go to this demo service that we've got, and this is going to return a message object. Why don't we serve this API and we can verify that it's working? To do that, we can do nx serve and we can target API. And once it's up and running, we can go over to the browser and we can take a look for it. Here we've got our API message coming through. The next step is to get Prisma installed so that we can start working with a database. And the way this will work is we'll install a couple packages. One will be a regular dependency and the other a dev dependency, and then we will initialize Prisma. The first one we'll need as a regular dependency will be @prisma/client. This will give us the Prisma client, which is the type-safe database access client for us to work with our databases. And the next one is going to be a dev dependency, and this is going to be Prisma. So Prisma will give us the Prisma CLI to work with. Once those are in place, let's initialize Prisma. We can do that with npx prisma init. And when we do that, we get this new directory here called Prisma. And inside that directory, we get a schema.prisma file. And this is the file where we describe our database tables. So in here, we can model out our database tables and the relations between tables and all of that. The default provider is Postgres. Let's switch this up for SQLite. So we're going to be working with just a local SQLite database. And to do that, we can say the database is actually going to be located here at file/dev.db. We don't have this dev.db file in place yet, but it will be created for us as we get a bit further along. We can go ahead and create our model. So this will be a table called product. Let's have a table called product. We'll need an ID, and that will be a string. Let's mark it as the primary key for this table. And the default that should go into here will be a collision resistant unique ID. So we get that with CUID like that. Then we'll want some fields to describe our data. We'll want a name, which will be of type string. We'll want a description as well, and that can be a string. Then we'll want an image link. That's going to be a string as well. Let's have a price, which will be an integer, and then a SKU. So a product SKU, and that can be a string. So with our product model in place, we need to now get this into our database. So we need to create a database in the first place because we're using SQLite here, and then we need to get the table into it. And there are two different ways we can do this. We can do npx prisma db push. It's a preview feature at the time of this recording, so we've got to pass the preview feature flag. db push is going to create our SQLite database. It's going to give us our table within that database. And this is pretty useful for working in local development scenarios. If, however, we are coding against something that's going into production, we'll probably want to use Prisma Migrate. The way that we get that is npx prisma migrate, and we would say migrate dev. Using Prisma Migrate, we'll create a migrations directory. It will track all of the SQL that is used to construct our database tables and make changes to them over the course of time. And the benefit of having stored migrations is that we can then run them in our production settings and affect our databases in production. However, since we're working just in local development here, the db push command is fine. Let's take a look at our database, at what's inside. We can do npx prisma studio to take a look inside our database. When we do that, we get Prisma Studio here in the browser, and we've got our product table with all of our columns. So now we should put some data in the database. We can add records one at a time here in our database, but I've actually got some data prepared, and this is a good opportunity to use database seeding. To seed our database, we can go into the Prisma directory, and we can create a file called seed.ts. The first thing to do here is to import the Prisma client. So we'll import Prisma client from @prisma/client. Then we'll want to get an instance of it. So we can do a constants of Prisma is equal to a new Prisma client. Then let's give ourselves this async function that we'll call main. We can just call it main so that we can do some work in here. And then let's set ourselves up with a for loop, a for of loop. So for let item of items, and items is not defined yet. We'll define that in just a moment. Inside here, let's do some work. So for let item of items, let's await Prisma, and then we can go to our product model. There's product, and we can do create, and we'll set data is equal to item. So then we'll need to come down here and we will call main. We can catch any errors that happen. So when we get an error, let's console.log that error. And then we can do process.exit with an exit code of 1. And then we can call finally here, when this finishes, let's call Prisma disconnect. And that's going to disconnect our connection to Prisma. So we can save that. We don't have our items defined yet, but I've actually got some data on the clipboard. I will link up the gist which holds this data in the description. Let's give ourselves a const of items, and I'll just paste in that data. So what's happening here is we've got this array of data. We've got this function which goes through and creates the items. And now over in our new terminal window that I've just opened up, let's do npx prisma db seed. And this is another preview feature at the time of this recording. When we call this, this is going to reach into seed.ts. It will seed our database and then give us this message at the end. So over in our browser now, back in Prisma Studio, if we refresh, we have got our data in place. So the goal now is to write some endpoints with Nest.js so that we can get this data and then be able to consume it from the Angular application. And we can get a start at this if we create some controllers and services. Let's start out on the API side with Nest. And to do that, let's do nx generate. And we'll reach for the Narwhal Nest plugin. And we'll want a library. Let's call it products. And we'll want a controller and also a service. So running that command is going to give us this products directory here within libs, and this is some stuff that's particular to Nest. And in particular, we have got a product service and we have got a products controller. Let's start out working on the service, this products service here. And this is where we will reach for Prisma. We will import Prisma clients from @prisma/clients. And once again here we can get an instance of it. Const Prisma equals a new Prisma client. And within this products service class, let's export a method which is going to be responsible for getting the products. So we'll have a public method called getProducts. And let's have this return prisma.product. So we'll reach for the product model and we'll make a find many call. So that is going to find many products that are in the database. If we had more than 3, we may want to do something like take 10 or something like that, whichever number we want to limit to. But we've just got a handful of products, so we can do find many. We can immediately start to get the benefits of type safety right here within our service. If we pull in product, this is exported from the Prisma client. It is produced when we generate the Prisma client. And this type here basically describes all of the properties that we've got within this product table. So what we can do with it is we can say the return type of getProducts is going to be a promise. And within the promise, we are going to have a product array. So let's save this, and next let's go into the products controller. So our product service here is already injected for us, so that's great. So what we can do now is create a method that will be used to expose our products via the API. We can use the get decorator that comes from Nest, and this is going to expose this to get requests. We'll do public async getProducts. That will be the name of this method. And this is going to return this.productService.getProducts. Now, before this will work, we actually need to pull this into our API app here. So if we go into app and then we go to app.module.ts, we need to pull in the products controller and products service. So we can import those here. We can import products controller and product service. And those can come from at shirt-shop/products. So we've got these path aliases here that are done with our tsconfig. That's all taken care of for us by NX. And now with those in place, we can put them in the appropriate spots. So products controller needs to go next to app controller here, and product service can go next to app service. And now over in the browser, if we go to API/products, there are all of the products coming from the database. So the API is pretty much ready to go, and now we can focus on building the front end pieces. To do that, we'll want to start by creating a new lib that is specific to our UI layer. So for that, let's come down here to the terminal, and we can do a command here to generate our UI lib. So nx generate narwhal/angular, that's the plugin we'll want, and we'll want a library called UI. And this will pop that UI library here into our libs directory. We will need some more commands here because we need to generate a component and a service. So we can do nx-g for generate, that is the shorthand. We'll want a component called products. And the target project here is going to be UI. That's the project we just created. And we'll use this export flag so that we export these pieces from that UI directory. So looking inside there, we've got source, lib, products, and there's our products component. And we'll want the same thing now, except instead of a component, we'll want a service. And there's our products service. Much like we did with the API application, we need to pull all of this UI module into our shirt shop Angular application. So here in source app under shirt shop, we've got app module. And let's import our UI module. So UI module comes from at shirt shop/UI. And then for the imports here, we can pass UI module. All right, so we are ready to start working on the component here for our products display. Let's go over to our libs and we'll go to the UI lib that we've got here. And we'll go into products component. Let's start with CSS here. I've got some CSS on my clipboard that I'm going to paste in. This will be linked up. The direct link to this will be linked up in the description. And then over in the component here, let's inject our product service that we've got. So we can do public products service. And that's going to be pointing to product service, which is just one level up. So we now have access to it there. And let's give ourselves a public member here, which will hold the data. So public $products, because this will be an observable. And we'll actually pull in observable here from RxJS so we can type into it. And in fact, let's type in this as product array. Again, product comes from Prisma. It gets generated by Prisma. So we can import product from @Prisma client. And then let's use ng on init. On init, we'll want to say $products is equal to this product service, and we'll call a method that we'll create in a second called getProducts. So right now it doesn't exist, but we will go in and create that. So we'll save our components and let's head over to the service now. One thing that we're going to need here in the service is the HTTP module. So actually we need to go into our UI module and pull it in here. So for our imports, we want to be sure to have HTTP client module, and that import is going to come from, so import HTTP client module from, and it's at angular/common/HTTP. So that is in place there. Back in the service now, we can make use of it. We can inject it. So we'll have public HTTP, and that's going to point to HTTP client. And HTTP client just got auto injected here, coming from common/HTTP. Let's have a private member here, private API URL. Typically, we'd want to have this somewhere else, somewhere that is more accessible, like an environment file. But since we're just using it in this one spot, let's just put it here. So HTTP localhost 3333/API. That's going to be the base API URL. And then let's create that method that we're already calling from our component. So public getProducts is the name. And this will return an observable. So observable that gets pulled in from RxJS. Once again, inside we'll want a product array. Product, once again, coming from Prisma. So import product from @Prisma client. And now we have type hinted the return type of getProducts here. To return those products, we just do return this.http.get. So it's a get call. And that's going to go to this.api URL/products. And because this is giving us an error here, a type error, what we can do is we can say that this is going to return a product array. So we've applied this product type to various locations here throughout the application, and it means that we're type safe in many different spots, which is helpful for giving us a lot of confidence as we go and develop this application further. The last thing to do here is to go into the products component HTML. We'll get rid of this default template that comes here. And I'm just going to paste this in. I will link up the source for this in the description so that you can copy it over. Basically, we are looping over the products that we've got, and we're using the async pipe to unwrap them. And then we are calling various properties on them. The key thing to see here is that because we are type safe everywhere, we actually get auto completion here in the template, which is really powerful. So let's save this, and we're going to save anything else that hasn't been saved yet. I'll just close everything up here. Before this will work for us in the browser, we actually have to enable cores here at the API. So we go into apps API and then main.ts. Right now, this is closed off to anything that doesn't come from the same localhost 3333 port. But what we can do is we can say app.enable cores. So this is the way we do it here in Nest. And now we can take requests from elsewhere, from 4200 in our case. You may not want to do this in your case. You may want to create a proxy from your Angular application so that the API is exposed at 4200. That's probably a best practice, but if you are in a situation where you need to serve over different domains, this is one way you can do it. So let's save this, and let's see if we get anything over in the browser. If we go now to 4200, we get this error, module not found. We can't resolve shirt shop UI. So let's check that out. We've got apps shirt shop app.module. And one thing we can try here is we can just reload everything. So over here in this first tab, why don't we just kill that process, and we can do npm start. That will start the Angular application. Looks like it's compiling now. So back in the browser, if we refresh, everything is still working here. So to get our items displayed on the screen, the last change that we have to do is get rid of all of this here, and we need to call for the component that we made in the libs directory. So here we can have an h1, and it'll be welcome to shirt shop. And then we'll call for shirt shop products. There it is auto completed for us. All right, so let's save this. And then over here, we have got our products coming through. So what's happening is that this component here, shirt shop products, again, this is over here in the libs directory. The philosophy, again, of NX is that we keep most of the stuff for our applications within libs, and then we keep our apps very small. So for example, our app component here, this is within the apps directory. It's very thin. It's just calling on this component that is within the libs directory. And within here, we have got our products component. We've got some CSS for it. We've got our products component class here, which is using our product service to actually get those products from our API. Now, just to reiterate, one of the main benefits of taking this approach of using a monorepo and getting our Prisma client to give us types for our database tables is that we can apply type safety everywhere in our application. So really, this is full stack type safety. We're type safe on the front end. We're type safe at our API in the calls that we make to our database. One spot that we haven't applied type safety necessarily is at the entry point to our API. We haven't yet done anything to verify payloads, for example, that come to our API. To do that in a nest setting, we would use validation pipes. Right now, since we don't have any endpoints that are taking post requests, we don't really have a need for it. But once you do go and create any kind of endpoint that's going to be taking in data, it's important to verify it before it actually enters your endpoint. So we've really just scratched the surface here with NX, with Prisma, Nest, and Angular. There's much more to do if we want to go even further. Hopefully this overview was useful, and let me know what you think down in the comments below. Thanks.